Scotland's super sponsorship scheme for Ukrainian refugees, which was paused in July because of high demand and a lack of suitable accommodation, will not be restarting anytime soon. The minister in charge of the programme told MSPs today that more time and resources would be needed before it can reopen. In the meantime, the government is launching a new campaign to encourage Scots to consider offering a place in their home to displaced Ukrainians. But one local host has told this programme ministers need to offer more support. Greg Ho reports.
In March, Oksana and Sophia became the first Ukrainian refugees to arrive in Scotland. Around 21,000 have followed, with 252 moving to the south. Anna is one of those. These birthday cards from the community in Dalry are testament to the warm welcome she's received.
I feel very welcome. At first I was very scared about people, about communication, about my English. I'm sure that it's not well, but you know, all people help me to improve my English every day. So yes, I am very enjoying.
Anna moved as part of a scheme where private homeowners open their doors. The Scottish Government also set up a super sponsor scheme where it was in charge of providing accommodation. It was paused in July because of the huge number of applications, and today the minister couldn't say when it would reopen.
Scotland is facing the most severe economic upheaval in a generation, already impacting people, businesses, public services and the third sector. Difficult decisions are being taken that affect all of Scotland's people, and our offer of support for people displaced by the conflict in Ukraine is unfortunately not immune from that. Having considered the current position, I've concluded we're unable to resume applications to the super sponsor scheme at this time.
Despite the best intentions of the Minister and his officials, and I've never doubted that for a moment, the super sponsor scheme remains mired in problems. What date does he expect the super sponsor scheme to resume?
I can't put a timescale on that.
Anna's host is Paul Goodwin, who says those who move here need more practical guidance.
The whole nightmare of bureaucracy is crazy. First of all, the big problem is that the government, UK government, Scottish government and even the local authority never issued a list of all the things that need to be done when people come from Ukraine. It didn't issue it to them and they didn't issue it to the hosts. I've made out my own list, which I've passed to numerous people, and everybody seems to think it's helpful, and it covers a whole range of stuff from how to claim universal credit, child benefit, Scottish child payment.
Every day, more than 100 Ukrainian refugees are still arriving in Scotland, and yesterday Russia intensified its bombardment of Kyiv, targeting power and water supplies. As winter approaches, many more are likely to flee. Desperate for sanctuary, they'll find many open doors in Scotland, but for now the super sponsor scheme remains closed.
Shortly after his statement to MSPs, I spoke to the Refugees Minister.
Neil Gray, the Scottish Government has badged its initiative to help people from Ukraine as a warm Scots welcome. You said it's been incredibly successful. Why have you not restarted the super sponsor scheme?
We've not restarted the scheme yet because the criteria that we set out in our review hasn't been met. We've still got pressures on temporary accommodation and ensuring that we have a good flow through the system that allows people to move from temporary accommodation into long-term accommodation. That's not an issue that's unique to Scotland. I'm in regular touch with my counterpart in Wales. I was in Ireland recently. There are similar challenges there. This is a Europe-wide humanitarian response that are facing similar challenges. We're doing everything that we can to make sure that we're providing that warm Scottish welcome that people would expect us to, and the review will hopefully allow us to continue to do that.
But when you set this up, Scotland was going to be different. It was going to be different. It was going to be more welcoming. And it's not being more welcoming, is it?
It absolutely has been. There are
more welcoming than where?
Elsewhere in the UK that doesn't have a super sponsor scheme, because we've been able to welcome more than 17,000 people here in Scotland into the UK by extension than otherwise would not have been able to get here without finding a private host before arriving. So we've offered, alongside our Welsh partners, we've been able to offer the super sponsor scheme that allows people to get here quicker. Yes, there have been challenges around the temporary accommodation issues that we've had, but we're working through those, and we're trying to get a much better flow through the system, working through with our local authority partners, with our social housing partners, to ensure that we're able to provide longer-term accommodation, and that would allow us then to look again at whether or not we can reopen the scheme.
And I've looked at the criteria, the 7 criteria that you set out, and I'm not going to repeat them all because it's quite a long list. But for example, clear understanding of the costs related to reopening the scheme, clear understanding of the challenges, assessment of the situation in Ukraine, welcome accommodation being available. If you look at all those criteria, it doesn't look to me as if you're ever going to be able to reopen this scheme.
No, that's not the case.
So you will be?
We're looking. That's our ambition. Of course it is.
Right, is it an ambition, or can you do it?
It's our ambition. We want to be able to get to a stage where we're able to do that. But we've got. I've had meetings ahead of the statement where I've been discussing the review. I've been discussing the criteria for reopening the scheme with Ukrainian organisations, with others in the private and third sector, who acknowledge, who recognise that we cannot reopen the scheme just now, while we make sure that we get the offer for people right now, for people that are here in Scotland and for those that are still to arrive. We've got 13,000 visa holders who are still to travel, so that underlines the popularity of the super sponsor scheme, that we've got 40,000 visa holders, 13,000 still to travel. It has been incredibly popular, it is the right thing to do, and it's been proven to work.
And just to pick up on that, you say assessment of the current situation in Ukraine. We know in Ukraine now Russia has stepped up the bombing, people sometimes can't get water, winter approaches. We could have tens of thousands more people wanting to come to the UK, come to Scotland. You just can't cope with that, can you?
So, well, it's on. We would be able to cope, but it's on what we would be able to offer people in terms of what the accommodation would look like. If you look elsewhere in Europe, in Ireland, I was in Poland earlier in the year. We've got welcome centres that look more like refugee centres. I don't begrudge them for that situation, that offer what they're able to offer people. We've looked to offer people temporary accommodation that is more comfortable than that. If we were in a situation where we're reopening just now, such as because of an escalation or a mass movement from Ukraine because the worst has happened from Russia, then we would have to consider what we could offer in terms of accommodation. We want to be in a situation where we're offering people long-term accommodation, sustainable accommodation, and allows for the scheme to be sustainable as well. That's what people would expect, and we'll continue to do that, utilising the review that has been expertly led by Professor Linda Bald to ensure that we're able to provide the warm Scottish welcome that people from Scotland expect.
Could I just ask you about comments from the new Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, who talked of an invasion of illegal migrants? Now, we know that some of those migrants, perhaps quite a lot of them, could even claim asylum in this country. Do you think tone is important in this debate?
Of course it is, and it's absolutely shocking, despicable. I don't think I've ever seen a more dangerous statement from a politician purporting to represent a mainstream party in the UK than what I saw from Suella Braverman in the Commons yesterday. It was distraction, dog whistle politics that will only inflame the situation that you're seeing in Kent even further. She's got a responsibility to ensure people, because these are people, are properly looked after, properly accommodated, rather than what we've seen up until now, which is an othering by her and by the Home Office. And I hope that Suella Braverman can think very carefully about that before she comes to the Commons again or makes another statement about that situation. Providing safe, legal routes is what stops people travelling on the English Channel on dinghies, and that is what she needs to look at.
Neil Gray, thank you very much indeed.